Welcome to the Take Back Your Awesome show with me, your host, Colette Morris. And we are here for another week of Taking Back Your Awesome. And this week, ladies, we're going to be talking about how you can increase your productivity. If you always wanted to know how you can get more out of your efforts, more out of your day, then listen up to what I am about to say. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about how to increase your productivity, and with that we're going to be discussing Newton's law of motion. Have you heard of Newton? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about him. In 1687, Isaac Newton published his revolutionary book, The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, in which he stated the 3 laws of motion. Now, we're going to be talking about these 3 laws of motion because they are critical in our day-to-day and in our lives. We may not know it. We may be aware of it, but I just need to bring your attention. So go and get your notepads, go and get your books, and go and get your glass of wine or your cup of tea, and let's chill out and take this all in, because this is going to help you increase your productivity to the point where you're thinking to yourself, boy, how did I not know this sooner? So the first law of motion is objects in motion tend to stay in motion, and objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Now, this may be obvious, but let's just take a car, for example. You've got a car that's at the top of the hill, and when you let down the handbrakes and put that car in gear, what will happen? The wheels begin to roll and the car just goes into motion. And through hell or high water, that car's not going to stop unless you're going to pull up the brakes. But if you just let that car freewheel down that hill, it is in motion. Once it is in motion, then it does not stop. But that same car, if you have that at the top of the hill and you put the brakes on and you start that car, if you don't take the brakes off that car, what happens? The car stays where it is. It does not move. It doesn't go anywhere. And this is the thing. When you procrastinate on something, you're experiencing the pull of this law firsthand. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. So when you're procrastinating and you're oohing and ahhing and thinking, shall you do this or shan't you do this, it gets you very little or nothing done. You feel bad about it, just can't seem to get motivated to get started. Therefore, what do? You stay at rest. Frustrated, upset with yourself, and you insist that things weren't working for you. You make excuses that things aren't at the right time, or it's not working, or whatever reason. If you're not going to do anything, then things ain't going to get done. Luckily, it works the other way too. So if you just get started, if you generally keep going, then objects in motion just tend to stay in motion. Once you start and you get going, then you will, you're motivated to keep going. And it's shown, especially in network marketing, that creating momentum is key. Once you start picking up those phones and start calling those clients, you may hate it at first. But if you take time to create a motion, and if you put all your effort in this consistently over a period of time, it will eventually happen for you. things will just suddenly go pow. And before you know it, you are creating customers, creating prospects, building a team, and you're wondering, how did you get there? But it all starts with that small step to take action. The second law of motion, are you ready for this? The second law of motion is, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now, in life, this is true. And I'm not sure if you've experienced this, but much like this law describes, your progress is a balance of opposing forces in your life. There are supporting forces like energy, focus, and motivation, and there are opposing forces like fatigue, overwhelm, and discouragement. So whenever you want to make more progress, you have two options. You can either add supporting forces or you can remove opposing forces. So the lesson here is to constantly review progress, keep doing what's working and remove what is not working. Whenever you want to create progress in your life, keep the ideas in mind. Just get moving and you'll keep going. Apply your hard work in the most beneficial direction and modify the opposing forces in your life. Use Newton's law of motion to your advantage, and this will naturally carry you forward. The third law of motion is F equals ma. Force equals mass times acceleration. So F equals ma. Force equals mass times acceleration. There is one important takeaway in the F equals ma equation. The force is a vector. Vectors have both magnitude, that's the amount of effort put in, and direction, where effort is applied. If you want an object to accelerate in a path, in a particular direction, the amount of effort and the direction of the effort will both affect the outcome, right? So take the example that I give of the car. No, in fact, do you know what? Take the example of the aeroplane. Yeah, because this is something that is a fact. Take the example of an aeroplane taking off. Did you know that something like 80% of the fuel is spent on taking off? When the plane is trying to get off the ground, do you think it would rise off the ground if it taxied slowly? Of course it wouldn't. To fly almost all aeroplanes, you need speed. They need speed. Imagine. They need magnitude and force. They need continued movement to get off the ground. That's the direction. So whenever you want to make progress, it's not about how hard you work, the magnitude, but it's also about where you apply it, the direction. So with these three laws of motion, these three laws of motion are key to help you move your life forward. And I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have, please do subscribe to the podcast, please do share this podcast to someone who may find this useful. And you can find this podcast available on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio and Spreaker. So until next week, this is me, Colette Morris, signing out. Have a beautiful, beautiful weekend.